Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, very warm welcome to another edition of our evening program. I also welcome all the viewers watching this program live on all our social media portals. Radio, MMA Radio, Voice of MMA. As usual, if you have any questions, please do share your questions. The distinguished panelists have really agreed to respond to all your questions. But the rest of the questions only focused on Sri Lanka, what the topic of discussion for this evening. Before I call upon the distinguished panelists for this evening, let me briefly tell you what's happening MMA. Only one event that is happening on the 26th tomorrow. All the events for the month of June and July also have been finalized. We have lined up some outstanding events. Please do come and attend, and I'll share the list as soon as possible. Now, what's happening tomorrow is again a very interesting event. Discussion on the theme of the book Art of Management, and Mr. Shivakumar, who is the Chief Executive President of Aditya Birla Group. You know, Shivakumar is a former head of Pepsi and also former head of Nokia, outstanding thought leader. At least I will walk miles to listen to him. Is one person, the clarity of thought, the subject what discussing, outstanding. So don't miss this event tomorrow. He's going to be talking along with, we have a co-host with him, Mr. R. Ramraj, founder of SIFI, and Gauri Mukherjee is a co-founder, Chief Marketing Officer of Credit Mantri. Let me also warmly welcome all the members from Policy Matters, a very young organization, a very vibrant organization, Mr. Sathiya Moorthy, and other distinguished special invitees. Also, those who have invited them and joined us this evening, very warm welcome to each one of you, in addition to our members of MMA. I want to remind you two things. One is MMA election. I've been requesting you every time, please do vote. I know we have moved to electronic format because whole world is moving to a technology, and we should also move to a technology for a simple reason, to bring in transparency and very clear methodology. That's why we have selected NSDL to do this, and you know, almost all the organization, including most of the organization, including shares and stocks, they do only from online, and including All India Management of Association, also IMA. They also do it online NSDL. So we just followed our parent organization. So please do vote NSDL. And if you have got any doubt, in case you not got any mail, please, we have opened a help center. We have got one center functioning 24 hours. Anytime you can give a call to Mr. Sundar. He will assist you from wherever he is to help you out how to log in, how to do the voting. Voting is your fundamental right, but please do vote so that you select the best committee members to join the managing committee who will be running the affairs of Madras Management Association. So once again, request, do vote, and I wanted you to say that I also voted for MMA, so next time you can tell you, it will be nice that you do this initiative of MMA, support us in a big way, because we really use technology in all our endeavor. One additional thing is what we are doing election. Coming to today's topic, Sri Lanka, from pearl drops to teardrop. I think today any magazine, any newspaper you open, there will be quite a bit of discussion on Sri Lanka. Everybody has become expert on Sri Lanka except Sri Lankans. Everybody writes so much, especially in India we write so much. And I see so many comments and so many talks, whether we should learn lessons from them, what should we be doing, how should we be doing. I'm always firmly believe that when the going is good, we should enjoy. India is, everything is okay. Inflation also has come down after the petrol prices have been reduced. Interest rates have affected, has come down. I think India is doing very well. And what is so important is that we are so concerned about our neighbors, and especially Sri Lanka. So we are doing a lot of support to them in so many other ways, where the experts will share with you what's happening. And ladies and gentlemen, put your hand together to welcome our experts from Sri Lanka this evening. Mr. Sathiya Moorthy. Sathiya Moorthy is Convenor of Policy Matters, a young think tank organization being started. Then Nirupama Subramanian, and senior journalist from Indian Express, and Srinivasa Babu is the industries from Tiruppur, expert and well-wisher of MMA, and also Mr. Abbas Satwala is the Chief Administrative Officer, Expo Freight Private Limited, the global company from Sri Lanka. Please, may I request you please come and take your place on the dais, sir. Come. As I mentioned just a while ago, we have outstanding panelists. Each one of them are expert in their own area, and I am quite sure you're going to have a feast of a time this evening. Listen to the subject where I don't think you would have heard so many times what is going to be discussed this evening. Some insight which will be very, very useful. The takeaway will be very good for us to how to deal with crisis and important issues. Let me have the privilege of introducing our distinguished panelists for this evening. Sathiya Moorthy, good friend of MMA, well-wisher. We have worked together more than last 15 years together. We do a lot of events together. We have brought in some very, very high-profile events together. He is presently, as I mentioned, convener of Policy Matters, a new think tank which he has founded. He is also a policy analyst, commentator, and many other things he does, and neighborhood policies and politics. He is an expert on all the neighborhood countries. I know that I personally interacted with him, with Maldives, with Sri Lanka, with Pakistan. He is authority on this subject. He writes regular articles in not only in Indian newspaper, in Sri Lankan magazines, which I had the privilege of reading many times. And till recently was also head of Chennai Operations of Observation OR Foundation. I am quite sure the loss of OR Foundation is the gain of the birth of Policy Matters. Very warm welcome to you, sir. It's a privilege to have you with us this evening. Let me have the privilege of introducing Ms. Nirupama Subramanian. She is a senior journalist, national editor, strategic affairs from Indian Express. Nirupama is a senior journalist at present and is, as I mentioned, national editor. And she also Indian Express, different form in the new Indian Express in New Delhi. And she was the foreign correspondent of the Hindu in Colombo from 1996 to 2002. So she knows first-hand information of what exactly happened in Colombo, and that insight will tremendously help us in the discussion this evening, what we will be going to have with the experts. Nirupama has also authored the book Sri Lanka, Voice from a War Zone. So another interesting book. If you have not read it, you must read it. Very, very interesting insights. And let me also have the privilege, very warm welcome to you, madam. Privilege to have you with us this evening. Let me have the privilege of introducing Mr. Srinivasa Babu, Chief Executive, Duraisamy and Sons, Tiruppur, good friend of ours. Srinivasa is the Chief Executive Officer and partner of Duraisamy and Sons, who shows orders of knitted garments and execute the same, and travel across the globe to meet customers, and responsible for maintaining quality at the factory with systems. And I can assure you, they bring out some outstanding knitwear and T-shirts. As a golfer, I know we use them. You can see some smart youngsters wearing the T-shirts, beautiful colors. It's all be sourced from their factory only. Thank you, Mr. Rao, and warm welcome to you once again. Let me introduce the last but not least, one of the outstanding personality who joined us this evening is Mr. Abbas Satwala. Abbas is Chief Administrative Officer, Expo Freight Private Limited. It's called EFL Global. Abbas is EFL Global. He oversees all aspects of administration in India, including finance, human resources, IT, legal, compliances, and internal audit, etc. And Abbas comes with a strong financial background, and is a specialist in accounting, and he did his master's from Deakin in Australia, Melbourne, Australia, and is also a graduate in finance, diploma in chartered accounting. And his Expo Freight Private Limited is a fully owned subsidiary of Sri Lankan listed Sri Lankan stock company holding PLC, who in recent times has gained #1 spot in Colombo Stock Exchange in terms of market capitalization, which is indeed a creditable, I don't know what is the position today, but exponentially, primary business is freight forwarding and trading under the brand EFL Global. EFL Global has seen rapid growth in the last couple of years, expanding its footprint to 35 countries worldwide. So nobody could be better than Abbas to share with us what and how it's impacted, because he has been dealing with so many countries, what's happening in terms of the trade, export as well as import from to and Sri Lanka. Very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I request you to put a big round of applause to our distinguished panelists for this evening. And on the format for this evening, Mr. Sathiya Moorthy will explain the format. If you have any questions, please do. The microphone will be given to you. So be brief to your questions, identify yourself, and Sathiya Moorthy will briefly tell you the format of this evening. Good evening, Council Ambassador. Welcome, sir. We have a Council of Japan with us. Over to you, Mr. Sathiya Moorthy. Take it forward.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Mr. Group Captain Vijay Kumar and Team MMA, to help me make this happen. Now, topic of the day, from pearl drop to teardrop, both as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, the shape is the same. Only thing is description have changed, unfortunately. The thing is, about a decade ago, as far as the economic crisis was concerned, it was around the time the Sri Lankan government was talking to China on the Convenor funding. I asked the senior official, how are you going to pay back? This was the only concern of India at that time. India knew that we are not going to step in for a variety of reasons. But if China comes at that time, the strategic question or those things were not there. But can Sri Lanka afford to pay back this kind of huge sum, because there is no way they can make that kind of money. Then this official told me, Satya, why are you bothered? Who in this country cares about paying back? They will be there in power for 10, 15, 20 years. Then the next government will come. Then after 10, 20 years alone, they will change roles, which is what senior politicians in Sri Lanka readily agreed. But this official also told me, he was still in office, this has been happening for the past 40 years. So when we talk about the role and the contribution of the Rajapaksas to the current dynamics or the problems, it is a great part, but that is not the only part. Let us not confuse about it. Two, the problem that Sri Lanka is facing today is being faced by all of India's neighbors, small nations, with minimal capacity to raise resources are facing. We can say there is a common Chinese, the common denominator, yes, but that is not the only reason. There are internal structural deficiencies. Instead of addressing them, they actually built on their structural deficiencies. And added to that, the China factor funding. There the problem I see is not about the debt trap, because if you take Sri Lanka, China is 10% debt, Japan also the same thing, and there are others also. There are, I think some of the international institutions, it may be a little more. But China invested without creating one single job for the Sri Lankans for the last 10 to 12 years. No family incomes. They brought not only material but also men. This is a huge gap that is hitting average Sri Lankan, because all the jobs that were in the non-government sector, in the big time organized industrial sector, went to Chinese labor, and they were paying for it in the future. Unfortunately, where my friend, the bureaucrat, say was in predicting that this problem will arise 20 years later, 15 years, 30 years later, but it happened here and now. Maybe that, of course, COVID has to play a role, and President Gota's harebrain of economic policies, like drastically cutting down on the number of taxpayers by about 1 million numbers, then the tax revenue came down by 25 to 30%. Then all of us know about the import of Chinese organic fertilizer. All these things added to the nation's woes. Yes, we know. But what is happening now and what is going to happen? One thing we have to notice there, as for the economic administration, the last 1 month is concerned, India is the only country that is putting in money. Others who criticize the government of Sri Lanka on human rights violation, etc., they have been put in money. In fact, I was hoping that, or maybe it has happened, we have been told that Prime Minister Modi will take it up with his Quad allies in the Tokyo meeting yesterday and day before. What are you going to do about Sri Lanka? Are you going to leave it to us? In which case, leave it to us in full political strategy. You don't get involved one day and get out next day. And the way the new Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is going about it, he is talking to WHO, he is talking to FAO for aid, and of course IMF and World Bank. World Bank announced that they are paying, or rather that was the impression we were given. Now World Bank today clarified that no, that 140 million is we are permitting Sri Lanka to divert existing funds from other projects to essentials. Japan has given 1.5 million, some Sri Lankan newspaper wrongly reported 1.5 billion. Now, my own reading is that they just cannot survive with this kind of small bits of investment. Even if you take 4 million of IMF funding that is being negotiated. In today's Sri Lankan condition, how long can it come? Man, 6 months? 1 year? I don't think that kind of time. Of course, we have got through trade and industry experts, they will be better. They are better equipped to respond to this. This is also my question to them. How much time does Sri Lanka require in pre-COVID economic condition to stabilize? I am not talking about recover or move forward. If, for instance, we have a friend from Tiruppur, Mr. Babu, when this crisis happened, all the newspapers, and particularly in Tamil Nadu, went to town saying, Indian industry, Tamil Nadu industry, Tiruppur textile industry is going to boom. But today I think you have got a problem, right? With cotton prices shooting up, even cotton seed for cow feed and all that cattle feed, that prices have shot up in Tiruppur area. They shut down the shop for 2 days. So, how government of India is handling that? And the question is, what can Indian government can do for the economy of Sri Lanka? Of course, the government is doing a lot and they may be doing more. But India just doesn't have deep pockets. So what is the alternative game plan in the hands of the Sri Lankan government or even the Indian government? Or the two talking on that aspect? Now it seems, from looking from outside, the Sri Lankan government calls Delhi and says, I need 500 billion more. They seem to be getting it. But how long can it go? This takes us to the next question, politics. Unfortunately, in the last 2 months, every politician in Sri Lanka has conveniently and comfortably diverted the world's attention, national attention, to their economic crisis to an artificially created political crisis. I don't, for one, think that the change of government leadership is going to change the Sri Lankan economic situation now or ever. For instance, you take Prime Minister Ranil, I think he is among the best that country can have today. But he doesn't have a political backing. Maybe he looks good because he is own man. If he had a party, he would be thinking differently. And because we have Sri Lankan observers have seen him at work in the past, he has got a very proven habit of fighting with the president of the day. This is his 6th term as Prime Minister in nearly 30 years. He has not completed 1 term. Of course, the first term, of course, it was an accidental. He had to step in. With the rest of it, he lost. And he successfully managed to lose the prime ministership. And 2, in the last 2 months or really 15 days, he has been talking only about politics. Cabinet formation, 21th amendment for executive president, abolition or limiting the power of the executive president. When is he going to look at the economy? And we have to remember one thing, that when it comes to political protest, what you call the Orange Revolution of Sri Lanka or whatever, that happened in Galface Green. As some of us with the Sri Lankan experience, I think others would also concur with me or they can contest me. In Colombo, traditionally it has been anti-left. And Rajapaksas were anti-left from the beginning. They belong to a party. So, getting a crowd of urban middle class to protest particularly against the Rajapaksas, whose human rights violations, whose handling of law and order, everything, nepotism, etc., it is not difficult to gather that kind of a crowd. Colombo has got only 2 sets of voters. urban middle class anti-Rajapaksa voters, and 2 suburban lower class JVP voters who are again anti-Rajapaksas. So we got carried away with the crowds. But within these crowds, as I have done some work on it, there were different groups in what is called Gatha Go Gama or Gatha Go Village and their beach front. And there was different groups, yes, which is what happened. Even when we had the Jallikattu protest, not all of them sold by the same ideology or grouping. There was a common thread. But there was also organized protest. For instance, if you take the President's Secretariat at one end of the protest ground, it was guarded 24/7 by an organized group of trade unionists and student unions. I am told they even had a roster as if in shift. On the day Prime Minister Mahinda resigned, and there was violence by his people, which is very obvious, which was very well documented and recorded. This happened before noon or around noon. We stopped there and the police somehow thankfully intervened. Later that evening from 6:30 to 8:30, 2 hours, in the homes of nearly 80 politicians across the country were set ablaze. No one knows who did it, or everyone. Now suddenly the police have woken up, the politicians have woken up. But to me, with my little or limited information and knowledge, it was an organized thing and not by the Rajapaksas. This takes me to the first question on the economy. Now there seems to be some, the mood has come down, but it has not settled down. In case the government is not able to ensure supplies, which Nirupama after touring Sri Lanka said outside of Colombo there was no dearth. Though the prices have shot up, the dollar is, rates have gone up and all that. And the prices have also not come down. That was her personal experience outside of Colombo. But the problem is, if the government continues like this, will these organized groups, I am not naming it, but those who know it, will they keep quiet? Are we looking at another revolution, if not an insurgency? This is my greater concern. And from a purely Indian perspective, or a South Indian perspective, if such things were to happen in Sri Lanka, will it inspire some groups here? That is again a point of concern. And with that, I open the floor to my team, panelists. I start with Nirupama Subramanian, who will be sharing both her experience and knowledge of Sri Lanka with you. Over to you, Nirupama. You can speak from there. Thank you.
Thank you to MMA for inviting me, Group Captain Vijay Kumar, and thank you, Mr. Sathiya Moorthy, for inviting me to be part of this discussion. First, just to let you know that I was there last month in April, and so there is that much of a gap between last month and this month. I mean, there are many developments there, both political and otherwise. So just with those two caveats, I'd like to start by I know everybody will know the roots of this crisis, but I just want to take you briefly through this. And my cutoff point for this crisis, I mean, everybody says that this was, accumulated over generations. It was coming for many years. It's been coming for 50 years. But let me start with the cutoff date of 2009, when Sri Lanka wins the war against the liberation tigers of Tamil Eelam, and what happens next. Among the things that you see in Colombo today is this massive tower. It's called the Lotus Tower. It's a radio transmission tower, I think, a telecommunication transmission tower, but it's not being used for anything. They took a Chinese loan, they took a loan from China to build it. It's lying closed. I tried to access it when I was there. You're not allowed inside. I heard there were plans to start a rooftop restaurant, a revolving rooftop restaurant, whatever. But it's just there. It's a useless piece of, it's not even infrastructure. It's just ornamental perhaps, and it's there. And when you look at it, you wonder at the kind of things that the Rajapaksas got away with after 2009. A lot of wasteful expenditure, and Hambantota is a prime example of that. The port, the conference, and I was in Hambantota. I spoke to people and they said there's probably been one conference at this big center that again it's built with Chinese loans. In fact, Hambantota was going to come up as Mahinda Rajapaksa promised as president. He said, I am going to build Hambantota better than Colombo. So there was this speculation that he may even probably shift the capital out of Colombo to Hambantota. At that time there was a speculation. So all these things, and of course there's an airport which is useless. There is this conference center, there's a stadium where nothing big has ever happened. So there are all these things. And of course they had at that time secured an IMF package for reconstruction. So the market was lending carelessly to them. I mean, they were just, they were borrowing, and no one red flagged that kind of borrowing. And you see from there, you see the results of what has happened. Politically, at the same time, what was happening? There was no effort at any post-war reconciliation with the Tamil people. Instead, what happened? Instead, the Sri Lankan political establishment that was basically cementing its hold on the Sinhalese Buddhist majority decided to focus on finding another enemy. So the enemy then became the Muslims of Sri Lanka. And there were so many events, riots in 2012, 2013. It was one after the other, whether it was hijab, halal, some other thing on a piece of fake news in Kandy. People died, there were people were injured. It was something was in Beruala in the south, something was in Kandy in central Sri Lanka. So there were all these incidents which kept the political pot boiling, as it were. And you have, in 2019, you have the Easter attacks, which kind of increases this anti-Muslim feeling. And then on the back of that, you have the return of the Rajapaksas with the two platforms of fear of terrorism returning to Sri Lanka, and the promise of security from the architect of the victory against the liberation tigers of Tamil Eelam, which is Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was at that time in 2009, he was Defense Secretary. So these are some of the elements of this thing. And one of the lessons, I think, for the entire region, for entire South Asia, is that populist authoritarianism does not work in the long run. You cannot close yourself off from listening to all your own population, all kinds of people who are clamoring for your attention. You can't shut them out. For instance, I mean, I compare the Gotabaya's decision, overnight decision, to switch to organic farming. He said, okay, from tomorrow, everybody moves to organic farming. Now, organic farming takes almost a year to prepare the soil, to cleanse it of chemical fertilizers, to prepare, for the soil to receive organic fertilizers, all that. But no, overnight, he decided, we are going to turn organic now. It was most likely because they just went down the list of essential items that they could cut off the import list because they had no money. They said, okay, let's knock off fertilizers and bring in organic fertilizers. And I compare that decision, and I don't know how many of you will agree in this room, I compare that decision to the demonetization decision in 20. What I said, sir, tea crop disaster for the paddy crop. The suffering on both counts now. The tea crop hasn't suffered that badly because maybe the sowing was, or the cutting of the plants was, the buds was slightly earlier, but the paddy crop has suffered. So that's one thing. The other thing that Mr. Sathiya Moorthy has gone through a lot of things, and one of the things that he mentioned was how India is the only country that has actually lent so much money to Sri Lanka. I'll say that this is not free. There's no such thing in international relations as a free lunch, or in anything. I mean, anywhere there's no such thing as a free lunch. The crisis, when you go to Colombo, the first thing you hear is, from protesters on the ground, and I will disagree slightly with Mr. Sathiya Moorthy that, this is an artificially created political crisis that is distracting from the economic crisis. No, if there had been no economic crisis, those people would not be on the road today. So they are linked. Who took advantage of them to burn those houses and all that is different. But definitely, there is a link between the two. People in Colombo, of course, are affected in a way differently from people in other parts of the country. For instance, more people in Colombo drive cars than any other parts of the country, so the fuel affects them. More people in Colombo live on 24/7 air conditioning and other things, so the power cuts affect them. More people in Colombo buy all kinds of imported items, including fish. I mean, why would Sri Lanka import fish? Think about that. And more people in Colombo eat imported fish than in other parts of the country. So these things are affecting Colombo as well. But the fact that it is, that middle class Colombo or upper class Colombo, all those people are protesting, does not make it an artificial protest. It is a real protest. It is on the ground. They have been there for a month and more than a month. 9th April is when they started, and now it's almost the end of April. So they've been there for a long time. It is not an artificial protest. And the reason that they are focusing on the Rajapaksas is because they squarely locate the economic crisis in the Rajapaksa rule. So that is the reason it's there. And the one thing that you hear from these protesters is that why is India helping the Rajapaksas? Why is India helping? So basically the whole money infusion from India is seen as something that is stabilizing, has helped the Rajapaksas to stabilize. In a sense that is true. I mean, you have the president still in power, and Ranil is the prime minister, but he doesn't have any people in parliament. He has no majority in parliament. He's just one member, and he's completely dependent on the Rajapaksa party for the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna for support in parliament. So he's completely dependent on them. So basically, Rajapaksas have gone nowhere. They are still around, very much in charge, running the show. And Mahinda Rajapaksa has returned. He may, I think he went to parliament as well. His son has returned. So they're not running away. They're there. So in a sense, India is the money that India has sent, the diesel, the paddy, the fuel, the petrol, all that has helped ease the situation a little. It has not mitigated the crisis. It has not made the crisis disappear, but this is it. So there is a feeling that India has helped them stabilize. And I would broadly agree that political stability was key to avoiding a meltdown of the kind that we see in Afghanistan. I mean, India cannot, not India, South Asia cannot have two failed states, you know. And it's difficult to imagine Sri Lanka as a failed state. It has everything going for it. I think at some point it had a higher per capita than India. It has better health and education statistics or numbers than India. It has had for a long time. It has a fantastic public health structure. It has universal education. So it cannot fail. Sri Lanka cannot fail, and somebody has to help it. And I think that has been the worldwide concern, that you cannot have two failed states in South Asia. The other being Afghanistan. So I think there has been not just India, I think there has been a worldwide kind of feeling, sentiment that Gotabaya Rajapaksa should continue. There should be for some political stability. Maybe there is an exit plan for later, I don't know. But as of now, that he continues and Ranil becomes the face of the government. Rajapaksa kind of recedes even though he's president. Ranil becomes a face of the government. He is more acceptable internationally. He can negotiate with international partners. He can negotiate with World Bank and IMF and America and India and everybody, because people know him as an experienced person. But why is political stability in Sri Lanka so important? It's of course a lot to do with China, China's role in the Indian Oceans, China's role in the Indo-Pacific, how Sri Lanka is part of the Indian Ocean, and how the Indian Ocean is of course an integral, as we saw the Quad meeting was just yesterday, and in the Indian Ocean is integral part of the Indo-Pacific. What has India got in return? People ask me on Twitter someday, why are we giving them this? Why they are thankless. They are accusing us of supporting Rajapaksas and all. Why? What are we getting in return? I can tell you we've got a lot in return. We've got a lot in return. Stuff that we hadn't got since 2009. Needling Rajapaksa every time to come on, give it to us, and no, he won't give it. So we had in the 1987 Indo-Sri Lanka Accord, which you may have heard of, which of course, it's got a lot of history, I won't go into that. There was a small thing that, it's a line in the annexure, that India and Sri Lanka will jointly develop the Trincomalee tank farms. India has got that now, from December. The day Basil Rajapaksa came to Delhi to ask for a loan for India to help him out, India laid out the red lines, and that is what it seems to me like. I mean, neither country will say that, this was a quid pro quo. There's no statement saying, we gave you this, so you give us that, nothing like that. But the way things stacked up, it is clearly what happened. They were told that they have to speed these things up. So within a month, in January, you had an agreement on the Trincomalee oil tank farm. India is now going to develop that farm with Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. The Adani Group is now setting up a solar farm in Sampur near Trincomalee, also in Mannar, in the western part of Sri Lanka. There's going to be a solar energy farm. In the northern islands of Jaffna, 3 islands, where they had asked China to develop a solar energy farm, hybrid solar power farm, India is now going to do that. So I mean, there are many others like that. And it may sound transactional, and maybe it is, but this is what it is. We've got a lot in return. There is no free lunch. So this is basically what it is, and I'll stop here. If anybody has questions. Yeah, about Gatha going. I think when I met Ranil Wickramasinghe in April, he said to me, why should I become the Prime Minister? I'm one person in the whole of Parliament. What am I? How can I even form a government? Governments have to be formed with majority, and there's no way. Plus, who wants to be a Prime Minister in a system that has an executive presidency? I'll take a decision, he'll sack me in a minute. So I think there is a serious effort, although it sounds like a long-term plan, there is a serious effort to reform the political system, to clip the wings of the executive president, and to reduce his powers, because J.R. Jayawardene, who formulated this constitution in 1978, is famously said of this constitution that the only thing that it can't do, the only thing a president can't do under this constitution is to change a man into a woman and a woman into a man. Everything else it can do. So those powers have to be reduced a lot, I think, and they're going to do that. A bill has been presented to cabinet perhaps yesterday, and so we have to see how far that goes in pacifying the people on the street, because as long as there are people on the street, and they are, and the gentleman in the green who objected to my statement about demonetization, he will be surprised to learn that the Gatha Go Gama protests actually have taken a leaf out of our farmers' protests in Delhi. The fact that the farmers were sitting there for 1 year, and then finally Mr. Modi had to make a U-turn on those farm bills, has encouraged people across the region to realize their own potential, their own sovereignty as people, that sovereignty is located in the people. So therefore, there is, they have actually taken a leaf out of that book, and they've been sitting there. They think they can camp there forever. Nobody believed they would camp there. Really, nobody thought they'll camp there. The first night when I asked somebody, are they going to camp there? No, camp? No. Where will they camp? There's no place to camp there. But there was a place. They put their tents, and there they are. So I'll stop there, and if there are any questions, we can discuss later. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nirupama. And just a clarification, I did not mean, at least, I don't remember what I exactly said. It was an artificial protest. What I meant was artificially being prolonged by the political class, and because of that they are unable to or unwilling to address the economic crisis, which has to be solved here and now. That is what I meant. And another thing, for those of you who don't know, all Indian news channels are watched feverishly across South Asia. So if Nirupama referred to demonetization or farmers' protest or even delicate protest, it has got its reverberations across South Asia. It is not as if they are standalone or solitary affairs. In fact, I was surprised when I went to Maldives 15 years back. They asked me, people started talking to me in Hindi. They have never seen India, and people above 60, 70 and also. I asked how and why. We picked up Hindi from Vivid Bharati. Then in the present generation, their main staple in the islands or even Malay is all the Zee TV, Sony TV, soap operas in Hindi. Please remember, it is not translated to local language the way. In fact, the parliament, it was not officially announced about 6 months back when one of those programs in one of the Hindi channels where it was a last final day, one of the music competitions or something, I don't remember what. Parliament adjourned early. Where the speaker later told me, people were, MPs went home to watch the program. So this is a kind of influence. So when Nirupama said this, don't think it is being politicized. It is how it is being felt on the ground there. Now, Mr. Babu.
Good evening to my co-panelists and good evening to all the members here. So I'm not a political analyst or anybody, but I'm in the textile industry. So I thought I will present my views of textiles in Sri Lanka. So I know for sure that more than 50% of export income into Sri Lanka is through textiles only. It's not tourism, it's textiles. There are more than 1,200 export units in Sri Lanka, and they employ around 20% of the workforce is employed in textile industry. And their average salary in SLR is around 30 to 45,000 per month, which works out to around 6,000 to 10,000 in Indian rupee. That is the salary they are getting today. And the quality of workforce, what I have noticed there, is stupendous, really good, and efficiency levels are very, very good, and they are very disciplined in their works. They don't like, when I have a factory here, but somebody comes, a guest comes, they'll be looking, who's this fellow, somebody's come to see us. But there you go stand, they're not bothered about who's looking at you, they keep working. I've gone to so many factories, that is what the culture is there. They're very, very disciplined, and skill set is very, very good. I feel at least 25% better efficiency than Indian workers' production. So that is one something really good about Sri Lankan workforce. And I think before joining this session, myself and Nirupama are talking, and we said that women workforce in Sri Lanka is somebody, they are amazing. I think she was saying that they carry the country. I think it is true. The women of Sri Lanka carry that country, and with all the factories you go, you find women working there. So the women workforce also really, really, really good. Infrastructure is something, I have noticed that, and I feel so happy to go to Sri Lanka. These beautiful factories, amazing infrastructures are there. Water is in plenty, everything clean, neat, and disciplined in traffic. Everything is very, very neat. Totally different than other Asian countries, is what I felt in Sri Lanka. So I think we have to make use of, I'll come to that point later. Disadvantages, I think, yes, political scenario has changed, so they don't have foreign exchange, so that has created a problem in their, buying raw materials and getting things organized. And I think the other part is also the taxation and banking. So a lot of black market is also functioning parallel to the government, which is not good. I think that is where a lot of problems started. Advantage, as I said, workforce is really good and very friendly and moderate people. They don't have very right-wing views on life. They are very easygoing people. So, and women force is really good. And the laws of land is also really good for an employer. When a company person, if he goes, it's not very tedious, and we don't have old systems like what we have in our place. So the rules are very, very easy and easy to follow. So that is something I find to be very, very convenient for any company who has a factory there in Sri Lanka. And I think climate is something, moderate throughout the year. It's excellent. So you don't have any ups and downs. So it's really good. And access to all port, airport and transport is also something which is really good. So my main point of discussion on this today's thing was on the opportunities for Indian companies to develop in Sri Lanka. I think the biggest advantage is cost of labor today, because a garment is basically, Bangladesh is cheaper by India because of the labor cost. I think today Sri Lanka labor is much cheaper than Bangladesh. That is my understanding. So that can be used, and I think it will not, currency will not jump like that so easily up. So labor cost is something which will help us in getting production done, and the cost of garment will be very cheap there. Second thing, we can have some policies where the export has to happen only when we import fabric from India or something like that. In that case, Indian yarn and Indian fabric can be used, and these exporters can export to Europe and US. Today, Bangladesh has got MFN status for their garments, so they are not levied 10% import duty into US. If Sri Lanka can be given that leverage, I think Sri Lankan garment industry will take off, and they can start entering into US in a big way by competing with Bangladesh. So that will be something if the Quad meeting which is happening yesterday, if Indian government can put forth that Sri Lanka can be given MFN to support their exporting from Sri Lanka to US, it will be a very, very big boost for the country. And I think we also have to decide on FDI rules, which through pressurizing Sri Lanka to accept our benefits, like how she said, something should be given to us also. So if FDI rules can be pressurized into that, I think it will be really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Babu. Now, I invite Mr. Abbas to take this. He will be giving a Sri Lankan perspective of this.
Hi, good evening. Group Captain Vijay Kumar, thank you for inviting me, members and panelists. I'm going to talk to you all a few things. I'm not an expert as they said I was, but I'm going to talk to you about a few things. One is on a Sri Lankan point of view. So I'm a Sri Lankan, and what you hear on the news and all that is for the first time very accurate. People in Sri Lanka are really suffering. They have been brought into a lot of difficulties, and I think the biggest of it has been, the shortages of cooking gas, fuel, which has caused mile-long lines. I think even as at today, there is a huge gas shortage, and sometimes the queues extend to about 3-4 kilometers. And these are people who, are carrying kids with them. Workers on their way to work are stopping to get into the queue. And this is not only for gas. Until like last week, it was also on fuel for their vehicles. Luckily, the concept of work from home has come into play, and a lot of people are getting their workers to work from home. But people who have to come into office for production and all that are finding it really difficult. There is, like India, there is generators all over, but then again, there is diesel shortages as well. To top it all, there is power cuts on a day-to-day basis. It did extend to about 15 hours, but of recent, it's reduced to about 5 hours a day. Yeah. So, and generally, when you get things like this in an economy, generally the government prioritizes the work sector. They say, okay, for Colombo district, there won't be power cuts during the work hours. They'll be given a few benefits to, for employees and all that to start to get into work and all that. But here the situation has come to the stage where, the country is bankrupt and the government cannot make those benefits to the working sector. Yeah, so it's got very hard. Also, now there is a food crisis to top it all off, and what they are predicting is by around next month there won't be basic necessities for people to go and buy, and this is of course brought up by the whole fertilizer ban. I of course feel the fertilizer ban was a decision the government made also to save foreign currency. It wasn't just putting it to the people. The way they promoted it was go organic, it's better for everyone, there are a lot of benefits and all that, but I feel it was to kind of save on the foreign exchange, which has now taken a very bad turn. Yeah. Going back, I think you'll have also seen a lot on this Gatha Gama and what benefits has it led to the country. I personally think it has been fantastic. As a Sri Lankan, I feel it's fantastic. Just knowing the power politicians have in the country. I've grown up from a kid and there has been some ministers' kids in my schools. The power that the ministers' kids even have in a small country like Sri Lanka is just unbelievable, They come to school with their bodyguards. People can't, if they can't go and, pass them. If you pass them and you accidentally say something wrong, you probably get beaten up. There's a couple of ministers that were current ministers that are my age that, have brought guns into school with their bodyguards and stuff. So this whole, I think, my perspective of the entire cabinet currently, it's a bunch of thugs, uneducated thugs. You can quote me, but I feel, sorry, MMA, if I'm going out of line, but I feel, it's a generations-run family business, and this thing needs to stop. We need educated people coming into the system. We need a younger generation coming in. The present cabinet, it's all oldies, and we need a lot of new, young, fresh blood. Hopefully, there'll be a lot of people who are migrating, the people who stay in the country, the educated, are willing to run, get into politics and run and, save the future of the country. Yeah, because I personally feel the current cabinet, it's just being shuffled. Each of them are all friends, and they've personally crossed over multiple times, right? So it's a family-run business, and it needs to change. Just going back on Gatha Gama, what I feel has happened recently, I think it's a good thing. The power that people never had. The power people never had, with politicians and all that. I think this campaigning, people coming together, Nearly 45 days they've been campaigning at Golface. I think it has united the country. Of course, we have a lot more problems, but at least, some of the tactics that the politicians have been using against the people of the country, racism, threatening. There was this whole white van concept. Anyone who says anything bad against the present government disappears in a white van. I think that power slowly has come back to the people. It has united the communities, and even if you look at some of the events that have been organized at Gama, which is Golface Green, it's all cultural people getting together, feeding all the other people who have come to protest. And I think it's fantastic to see. I think there will be a change. It's going to take time. Personally, I feel nothing's going to change overnight. It will be at least a five-year change. But good governance has to come in. Good governance is important for the future of Sri Lanka, and I think change will come as a result of Gatha Gama. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, my panelists. There is supposed to be a question and answer involving me and the panelist, because there are experts on Sri Lanka care and others who want to ask the question. I won't stand in between. Wait for me to decide. I will invite. If you have problem, you can go. Okay. Now, before I flag off, there are one or two issues I will just mention.
Hello.
See, the irony of the present situation is, as Mr. Abbas was mentioning, it is old wine again in the old bottle. The Gatha Gama protests and others came for changing everyone, and today the youngest member of that team, as far as political experience is concerned, is still Gatha. That is the irony of the situation, and people want him out and they don't know how to do it. Through the motion on the no confidence motion or censure motion against the president, the ruling party has proved it as a majority. Maybe that day it was 109 or 225. And it may now have about, actually because that day 36 or 37 MPs were absent. They may still have anywhere close to 130 to 140. So what are we talking about? Maybe the civil society should approach the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka and get an order easier than go through this protest or retain this protest and do it. And two, about the protest and outcomes, across South Asia we saw similar protests everywhere. But ultimately, the outcome did not change. Maybe faces changed, leaders changed, but the system did not change. Or the results were the same, give or take. Then, when it comes to Gatha's organic farming, that day when he announced it, and preceded by the taxation, tax cuts, then taking people out of the tax rate, etc., I was reminded of another ruler from Delhi, Tughlaq. And only thing is, as we saw in the case of Tughlaq, all these things are coming to visit on him and visit Sri Lanka, unfortunately. With that, I throw open the house to questions, and this is being transmitted live. Sir, I will invite. There are experts on Sri Lanka. Let me complete that. I will come back to you. Sir, Commodore Watson.
Yeah, good evening.
Only questions, please.
Thank you for that excellent exposition. A question to each of the panelists. as far as Mr. Srinivasa. What your question?
Only one person.
All right.
Because everyone, there are others
All
who
right.
already raised.
All right,
I
fair
will
enough.
come back to you.
Got it. So, basically on, Ranil's pet project, this could be either Nirupama or you, on the pet project of Ranil, which was connecting Sri Lanka with the land bridge. Do you think its time is good enough for us to reinvest in this idea of connectivity through a land bridge?
Yeah, I think it was, he kind of vaguely floated it when he became Prime Minister in 2015, or before he became Prime Minister in 2015. There was talk that when he comes to power, at least in Delhi and all, there was much excitement that, he might bring about this land bridge. But I don't think there is that much public appetite for that kind of connectivity with Sri Lanka, with India as yet. There is a lot of, as I said, there is a lot of suspicion about India's intentions by giving this loan. They have secured their strategic objectives, as I listed them all out, many of those things. But there is a lot of public suspicion of what India's intentions are. So I don't think the mood on the ground is ready for a land connectivity. Yes, they're talking now about ferry service from various points, Talaimana to Dhanushkodi, then another 1 or 2 points. But you see, they haven't even opened Palali airfield yet. It closed down during the pandemic. And if you think about why they haven't reopened Palali airfield, it's something, I think that's something to think about. So there is a suspicion, and I think we shouldn't really push things faster than they are already, because I think we should just take things as they come.
Just to add a point, Ranil made that proposal only in Chennai in 2002 or so, when he was Prime Minister. Then in 2015, this proposal came up from Delhi. Our Transport Minister made an announcement. I happened to be in Colombo. Sri Lankans were aghast. What are you talking about? The Transport Minister of the day, then Ranil himself, then people in the Indian diplomatic community. We were never consulted. The Sri Lankan government, when asked in Parliament, short of saying we were not told. We are reading it in the Indian newspapers, right? But going beyond it, from an economic perspective, what's the kind of investment? What is going to be the kind of returns we have to look at it? For a simple reason, okay, we can talk about people-to-people contact and all that, which is happening anyway. We should not end up with another Hambantota on our hand, which is economically not going to produce money. Colonel Hariharan, please.
I have this question for Nirupama, since she knows Sri Lankan army. If you consider the violence which took place, where targeted destruction of the power mongers was done, do you think army would keep quiet if something happens like that? Because there is this lurking JVP version 3 threat. It is not elusive. Twice it has happened, and first time India was called, second time India sent troops, first time, second time our troops were there to bail out JR out of this. Now I think we should be very cautious that this doesn't happen, because he has cultivated one thing about Gotabaya that is different. As an observer, I am saying, I have met him also, and one thing that is different is he doesn't listen to civilian or politicians. He has got a strictly one-track mind. from what I gained from other Sri Lankan officers is that he does not easily change his mind. You would have seen it in his conduct also. So, how do you see the future of this scenario?
I think Gotabaya Rajapaksa is now a very chastised person. He's, he has agreed to remain in the background. And the point that you brought up about the army and his relationship with the army, it's very correct. He has cultivated the army to an extent that there was a feeling that they might just, take charge of the streets on his orders. And they have an army commander now. His name is Shavindra Silva, right? He is a kind of a showman. He is he struts around a bit and all that. So there was a fear that the army might do something adventurous. But I think if there was a moment for that, it was May 9th, and it did not happen. I think army also gets the mood on the ground. Army gets the mood on the ground, and they are quite clear. I think General Silva has made a couple of statements to the effect that they will go strictly by the Constitution of Sri Lanka and that they are not going to do anything adventurous. They gave protection to Mahinda Rajapaksa at the naval base in Trincomalee because he is ex-president, and as an ex-president, he is entitled to that kind of security, so they have secured him. I think they may have been acting on orders from other countries as well. I don't think anybody wants any person in any politician or anybody to be lynched in Sri Lanka or any other country for that matter. I think everybody is keen to avoid that kind of situation. So I don't think the army is now. I think the army is clear that they are not going to go against the mood of the people. That much is quite clear. They are not going to take orders from Gotabaya to crush the revolt or to, the protests or anything of the sort. There was a moment when it looked like the JVP would run away with it on the 9th of May, but I think they have also been calmed down now. I think politically the JVP is now much calmer.
Can I ask?
Yeah, just another additional point. But 2 days back, Colonel, I read in a section of the Sri Lankan media, General Shavindra Silva saying, we contributed a lot to COVID management, etc. Right now, we would like to contribute to rebuilding of the economy. I don't know what he implied. But one thing, as a rank outsider, I can say, I don't think, given the current economic situation in Sri Lanka, no army officer would like to take over. Right? The minute he takes over, immediately, whatever foreign aid they may get is not going to stop. And how much currency can they print? Already that country has got more currency than food grain. Right? 2, every soldier in Sri Lanka, every policeman in Sri Lanka has a family. They are all suffering. So that will also be with the army command for taking a decision.
Given the...
Your name, please?
My name is Kupaswamy. I'm a MMA member.
Okay, I know.
Actually, given the current economic scenario, prevailing...
You want to author to say?
Preferably Nirupama Subramanian.
She is not an economist.
Huh? Anybody can answer. Actually, given the present situation in Sri Lanka, how about, it may be a hypothetical question, but I don't know the practical implications, but I'm just putting forth the question before your panel. Integrating
Sri Lanka into Indian constitution as a separate state. Will it happen?
This is not an economic issue. This is not the place to discuss it.
No, why not?
I think you're best equipped
No,
to
no.
answer.
Given the win-win situation, no? Sri Lankans are very good.
Discuss it all after it.
And one more thing, sir. One more question, sir.
Only one question. Because there are other people in the queue.
Actually, I'd like to answer that question. No, one second. Just
No.
Yeah, good evening. It was a brilliant address by all the four of you, and especially Mr. Abbas, who really, from the Sri Lankan point of view, put your perspective and called the spade a spade. Now, my question is based on an editorial which I read in one of the leading newspapers, which said, and I just quote one line from there, that a large portion of Sri Lanka's problems is due to the freebie culture which they have introduced there, God knows from which cutoff date. So, if that is true, and that editorial said that is true, a lot of things have been given away free to the public and it has drained the exchequer. Now, my simple question is, if that is true, then should any Indian states be following, who are following that culture, are we on that track, or should we change our stand? In other words, has the freebie culture spoiled the Sri Lankan economy? I think my question can be answered by Mr. Abbas, if it's possible, or by Nirupama. Thank you.
Interrupt you?
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. See, I agree that there has been a freebie culture. The freebie culture again, goes with trying to gain popularity. You will generally see before elections that a lot of promises and a lot of new things have been implemented, mainly to gain popularity amongst the voters, so that they have the upper edge when they go to vote. Again, a few years ago they reduced all the taxes, they reduced corporate taxes, and now these are corporations that are listed corporations making millions and millions of rupees, right? And the government of Sri Lanka needs the tax revenue to service its debt, to develop the country, all that. So the freebies were definitely there, but I think more than anything, what had gone wrong was that there hasn't been a proper strategy in terms of servicing the debt. If you look at a microfinance company, right, that has purely been set up by some employees to get loans, and that entire loan system is servicing it by getting more and more loans. How the company is making money, no one knows. As long as that they are rewarding depositors with high interest rates and continuously getting that flow of funds coming in. Suddenly, some bad news gets out, and depositors start pulling out, and whole chaos happens, right? So I think that's what has primarily happened here. It has been great guns since 2009. The war has ended. Sri Lanka is, stock market is booming, fantastic economy, to go and invest, investor-friendly government, all that. But, now all those investments have to start giving a return, and that's not happening. And Nirupama mentioned about Lotus Towers. I concur. One of those projects is that it's sorry. Port City has some way to go in terms of development, and I think it will be a great future project. It's going to develop that whole finance hub and all that in Sri Lanka. Again, it needs to be properly administered and run, and if it's run like a small Singapore or a Hong Kong kind of finance hub, it will be fantastic for the economy, despite the Chinese owning majority of it. But yeah, to answer your question, those freebies have been basically a political agenda, and that has definitely led to the situation we are in currently.
Last question.
I'm Sairam. There one more reason they are telling it because of they change the income tax slab very drastically. Because first one problem is organic farming. Second problem is they told it is income tax slab because of the revenue has come down drastically.
Question.
Yeah.
This is what we spoke. Your question.
Income tax a lot. Whether it is affected them the economy because
Yes, very badly. And the new Prime Minister, who is also his Finance Minister, is going to present a fresh budget, I think another 2-3 weeks. Won't that happen, they will go back to old system or a hybrid system or whatever. It affected.
Yeah, just to add on to that, if any country is seeking funding from World Bank or IMF, we have to present a proper fiscal policy to them, otherwise they are not going to give us money. So with that fiscal policy, you will see income taxes raised a lot. They've always been talking about capital gains tax being implemented. That has never happened. So I think before you get any money from the next tranche from World Bank or IMF, all these taxes are going to go up, and it needs to happen.
thank you.
Only thing is, whatever Sri Lanka newspapers say about the IMF and World Bank negotiations, particularly IMF negotiation, they say the IMF is keen on addressing the social sector problems, the poor and the needy. So how they are going to balance it? How, if IMF has got a strategy for Sri Lanka to implement, particularly if it has to be the poor and needy, there are many people there. How are they going to address it? And what will be the IMF conditionalities? This will be interesting to watch. And otherwise, thank you everyone for making it interesting and active. And we have very good panelists who also did it. And unfortunately, the teardrop remains. The pearl drop is not to be seen even after 3-4 months. And maybe it is going to take another, this is my layman's belief, I may be wrong, I wish I am wrong. It may take Sri Lanka another 2 to 3 years to stabilize economically. The recovery, repayment of dues, all have to follow. And that requires a lot of sustenance from outside in terms of finance and sustenance, self-confidence and acceptance of the reality by Sri Lankans back home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sathiya Moorthy. I think fascinating evening, interesting insights. Because why we brought this discussion is to make us all more wiser. We must understand what are the geopolitical issues and how it's going to impact India rightly or wrongly. And I know our members and invitees are thorough gentlemen. I think they understand both the points, counterpoints. The idea is then only things will be understood better. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause to our distinguished panelists for this evening. Mr. Sathiya Moorthy, Nirupama, Abbas, and I think he has to take on the way to Kodaikanal. So we told him we'll let him go from here at 7:30. Now may I request our Excellency to please step forward and present the memento to our distinguished panelists. Can you do that? Okay. Then, yeah, I think maybe Atesh, you can join us. And I'll also request Colonel Harigan, you can also join us.
And thank you everybody. Good night.
So one second,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye. Good night. See you again tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Thanks. Bye-bye.